together now, my message to you is that if you're going to find your marketing mojo, if you're going to start to attract, if you're going to stand out from that sea of noise out there of people who are saying the same things that you're saying on your websites, then you need to have a story and some smaller ones beneath it to be different, to be authentic, for people to tune into you and get on the right wavelength. Those stories are very, very powerful, particularly when they're told well, which of course is the deliver element of dare, dream, do, deliver. You've got to have them in the moment coming across well. And then back to what Julian was saying, you've got to start building influence. You've got to put those things out there. You've got to share them. You've got to make them work for you. If you're keeping them to yourselves, it's a wasted resource. So make sure you're using things like LinkedIn and YouTube to get stuff out there. I talked briefly about telling it well. Do you all have in your respective countries Dragon's Den on telly? Have you got Dragon's Den or the equivalent to Dragon's Den? Yes, here we go. We have Dragon's Den in the UK, very, very popular show. And about 2 or 3 years ago, shortly after we'd started our business, we had an opportunity to exhibit at Olympia in London. And rumour had it that there was a dragon in the building. And it was Peter Jones. Those of you in the UK will probably recognise him, one of the most famous business people in the UK. And we were on a little stand alongside lots of other exhibitors, and we sensed that something was happening in the auditorium. You could just sense that change of energy. And have you ever seen those things like the West Wing or 24, where those security men who work for the president whispering into their wrists? Well, they appeared, and they walked down our lane, our aisle. So we thought, our moment's come. We're going to meet Peter Jones. Just then, this skyscraper of a man, immaculately dressed, comes around the corner and walks our way. And I'm getting very excited. And I'm saying to Sarah, my partner, our moment's come. Sadly, tragically, when he reached our stand, he was looking the opposite way at another stand. Now, I don't like bothering, we call it mithering in the north of England. I don't like bothering famous people in public places. But Sarah seems to have no such problem doing that. So she said, "Oi, Peter, come and talk to us." And I'm thinking, oh my God, you can't say that. But she did, and he turned around, he couldn't ignore it, and he came over and he spoke to Sarah for a good 5 minutes, and we explained, she explained what we were doing. And then he turned to me, and he said something to me, which I'll never forget to this day, which completely stopped me in my tracks. He said, "So your business shrinks." And I thought, what? It's not going to shrink. It's going to get bigger. We've just formed the company. We're exciting. We're seeing our sales curve go up. And he could sense that I was perplexed. I was troubled. And he said, no. I mean, your business psychologist shrinks. So then it dawned on me what he meant, and he saw my change of expression. He laughed. We got on very well after that, and the relationship kind of blossomed. But I wrote a blog about that little interaction with Peter Jones and put it on, posted it the following day on LinkedIn and Twitter, and he found it, and he retweeted it to 370,000 of his followers. Now, I like to use that story because I think it helps to justify, using social media. But I also like to tell it because I think I've learned to tell it in a particular way, which allows you, the audience, to experience a little bit of what it was like to be there. Could you picture the scene? Could you imagine what it was like for me to misunderstand what he said? Did you notice how I reenacted the words? Now we're into the art of storytelling. So when people in business start to try to tell stories, case studies, success stories. They often deliver an empty framework, which is bullet point, chronological, and very, very dull. And it needs texture. You need to help the audience almost re-experience, reenact what's going on at the time, using sensory language that they can relate to, that they become a bit emotionally involved with. And then, of course, all classic stories need to have unexpected plot twists, turning points, the battle between good and evil. These are things which people really, really enjoy, and that's why the movies we're in BAFTA now have been doing it that way for years and years, successfully. We have a methodology. We call it story sharing or story clubs. We work with organizations and bring teams together who would not normally talk to each other. And rather than say to them, right, have you got any referrals for me today? We say to them, have you got a story for us today? And in a safe and facilitated environment, it's extraordinary what comes out when you ask that question. One person goes, the others tend to follow, sales opportunities, best practice, more feeling engaged, more motivation, better stories being generated for the external message, but from within start to flow. And one of the best organizations at doing this, and they've embraced blogging and social media to a great extent, is Southwest Airlines in America. Southwest Airlines, for a number of years, have written a blog called Nuts About Southwest. And they have a team of maybe 25, 30 guest bloggers, their cabin crew, check-in attendants, pilots, cleaners, all sorts of people, baggage handlers. And they are on the lookout for stories. This particular one was written by Joe Goteal, who's one of their pilots. Young boy, previous week, had been on a flight, lots of turbulence, he was sick. He screamed all the way, made everybody miserable around him. And of course, when he goes to a flight the following week, which was this occasion, he started the same response, started screaming. So the pilot got wind of it. He said, well, bring him to the cockpit, sat him down in the pilot's seat, put his hat on, took a photograph, and it's published. And it's a lovely human interest story. So from the outside looking in, Southwest comes across as a really human, customer-focused, friendly, fun kind of organization, which will attract clients and talent. I want to work for them. But internally, it's tremendously motivating for people who are contributing with their own stories to the brand of Southwest. They believe they are the brand, which of course they are. A final thought. This kind of dawned on me when I was thinking about speaking today. And you've probably come across this concept that there are three basic core pillars, if you like, to building business relationships. Know, like, and trust. Have you heard of that triad before? I'm sure you've spoken about it many times. It's know, like, and trust. To my mind, there's a difference between the first one and the second and the third. The first one is a cognitive thing. It's, I know you exist. I've heard of your firm. I know roughly what you do. But like and trust are emotional things. And you've got to get beyond the cognitive awareness to build that kind of emotional attachment. And I think a great way to do that is to start sharing stories in the manner that I've described, because it helps people get a feel for who you are and what you're like to deal with. In other words, it's your distinctive personality, your unique footprint. So ditch the corporate speak, which creates the noise, and strengthen the signal with these great stories. So just a final thought, and let me see if I can remember this in the right order today. I'd like you to dare to communicate like this, in a different way. I'd like you to create some vision or a dream, if you like, for the clients or the prospects that you're seeking to attract, which is compelling, where they think, oh yes, I'd love to be there. You've painted a picture of where they could be. I think you also need to learn, and I may do these the wrong way around, to deliver those stories really, really well, because they're your golden asset. But if you're delivering them in a bland, factual, bullet point way, or you're blogging in a rather dry style, or you're communicating with people in that sort of shallow, transactional way, no good. And finally, there's a difference. I read this recently in the Harvard Business Review. There's a difference between being a storytelling company and a story-doing company. In other words, the stories that you're generating, if they're all 30 years old, that's no good, because it's not a current reflection of what you're like now. You need to be capturing stories every day on a current basis, from your workforce, from what's out there in the media that you're commenting on, so it's live. And then, of course, when you start doing that, then people begin to assume that that's the way you behave. You've got to keep it up. You've got to keep those behaviors up and continue to deliver and do things in a way that exceeds those expectations. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you find your business mojo. Thank you.